Hi everybody. This video is a short excursus to object-oriented programming, and I promise you that it's only a short excursus. So first of all, we import Pandas SPD and we import our Titanic file and save it in the variable Titanic. And let's have a look at the first 5 rows. So we already know the data frame here. And in Python, everything is an object, so also our Titanic tabular data or data frame is an object. And we can also check the data type of our tabular data, so let's check the type of Titanic. So our Titanic tabular data is of the data type data frame, or in other words, it's an instance of the class Pandas data frame. And with all objects, there are object-specific attributes and methods specifically designed for that data type. So over many years, more than 800 developers contributed to design methods and attributes, especially for large and messy data organized in a tabular manner. And this effort makes Pandas so a powerful tool. But before we move on to methods and attributes of our Pandas data frame, we know that there are also built-in functions in Python that can be applied to many data types. So for example, we have the length function, which we can apply to lists, tuples, or also NumPy arrays. And the length function returns the amount of elements in a list or a tuple. And we can also pass a data frame object to Python built-in functions. And sometimes we get a helpful result and sometimes not. And sometimes it's not even defined to pass a data frame to a specific Python built-in function. Alright, so let's start and let's pass to the Python built-in function length our data frame Titanic. And Python returns us 891. So from the last session we know that our Titanic data frame has 891 rows, so the length function returns us the amount of rows of our data frame. And we already know also the round function, so we can pass our Titanic data frame. And let's say we want to round to 0 digits. Let's see what we get here. And we can see here that by using the round function, each float object in our data frame is rounded to 0 digits. So if we can see here the fare, so our first passenger paid 7.25 pound or dollar. And this was rounded to 7.0. And also here the second passenger paid $71.28 or pounds, and this was also rounded to 71. So the round function rounds all float objects in our data frame by default. Yeah, and we can also try to transform our data frame into an integer by using the int function. So let's see if this works here. And no. So we get here an error message: integer argument must be a string, a bytes like object, or a number, not a data frame. So the integer function is not defined for data frame. And we can also use the min function, for example, which calculates in a list the minimum element in the list. So let's see what we get here. And we get here h. So why do we get here h? So if we have a look at our data frame in our columns here, so alphabetically speaking, h is the very first element starting with an A. So when passing a data frame to the min function, Python returns us the minimum column label. So in this case, it's here h because it's starting with an A. And I think this was not what we intended here. So maybe our intention was to get, let's say, the youngest passenger in our data frame, or the lowest fare paid by a passenger. But our intention was not to get the column label which starts with an A actually. Alright, so now let's move to data frame attributes. And the first attribute we already know. So we can check the shape of our data frame, and it's 891 rows and 9 columns. And there's also the attribute size. So we get here 8019, and what Pandas returns us is actually here the amount of all elements in our data frame. So we have 891 rows and 9 columns, so 891 times 9 gives us 8019 elements in our data frame. And we can also specifically return the index labels. So here we have a range index starting from 0 and ending at 890, so 891 excluding. And we can also explicitly check the column labels. So here our column labels are survived, passenger class, sex, and so on. Now let's move to data frame methods. And we already learned one of the most important methods. So we have the method .head, which returns us the very first rows of our data frame, and by default the first 5 rows. So when importing a data frame, the head method is actually the very first method we will use in order to get a very first impression of our data frame. And also we already learned about the info method, which returns us meta information on our data frame. So we have 891 rows, we have 9 columns. And for each column we have a specific amount of non-null values, and we have the data type in each column. And we have the memory usage of the total data frame. And now let's use another method called min. So in here we get for each column the minimum value. So we know that in the survived column there are the values 0 and 1, and the minimum value is 0. For the passenger class we have the values 1 to 3, so the minimum value is 1. For the sex column we have female and male, and female comes alphabetically before male, so we have female. Then the youngest passenger on the Titanic was only 0.42 years old. And there are passengers who didn't have any brothers, sisters, or spouses aboard. And also there are passengers who didn't have any children or parents on board. And there are also passengers who actually didn't pay any fare, so the fare is 0. And if we compare here the min method with our built-in function min here, then we see the power of the Pandas data frame class, because by applying the min method, Pandas returns us the minimum for each column, so that's quite cool. So the min method is specifically defined for a data frame and gives us much more functionality and helps us much more than the Python function min. So this is what I wanted to show you, that the data frame class is very powerful. And we can also have a look here at the documentation. So here you can see a description of Panda data frames. So it's a 2-dimensional, size mutable, potentially heterogeneous tabular data structure with label axis, and here you can find actually all attributes and all methods, so it's quite a large list here. And in the next lessons in our course we will have a look at many of these methods and learn a lot of functionalities, so hope to see you in the next lessons. Bye!